Two standards, one demand. Free all hostages and free Palestine. For 2 years, the world has heard a single, repeated refrain from Israel and its allies. Hamas must release all hostages. It is a demand dressed in righteous language, a call for compassion, for the return of children, women, and men who were seized in the fog of war. That demand is morally understandable when applied to individual captives. But it is a hollow, dangerous hypocrisy if it is not applied equally. And if the same voices that shout for the release of Israeli captives remain silent about the tens of thousands of Palestinians held, displaced, starved, wounded, and in many cases, effectively disappeared by the very state making the demand. There is nothing noble about selective outrage. Israel's insistence on the unconditional return of its citizens must be met with the same clarity when the tables are turned. Palestinian children and adults who are detained, interned, deprived of due process, or killed in blockades and bombardments are also human beings with inviolable rights. At the end of 2020, the Israel Prison Service listed thousands of Palestinians in detention. Independent monitors and solidarity groups put the number at well over 10,000 in various facilities and military camps. And these figures do not account for the many more displaced, missing, or killed across Gaza and the West Bank. This is not rhetorical flourish. It is documented reality. When human rights organizations and international judicial bodies speak, their words matter. Human Rights Watch, after extensive investigation, concluded in late 2024 that Israeli actions in Gaza meet the legal thresholds of mass crimes, including acts that amount to extermination, and in their assessment, acts that meet the Convention's tests for genocide. The International Court of Justice has likewise been seized by complaints alleging breaches of the Genocide Convention, and the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials, a seismic international judgment that cannot be papered over by political convenience. These are not partisan talking points. They are findings and procedures from institutions created to hold powerful actors to account. So when Israeli leaders demand the release of every hostage, they are asking the world to forget the larger context of power, occupation, and impunity. They are asking for moral clarity in one direction only. That selective indignation is itself an instrument of violence. It normalizes a world where certain lives are protected by global mechanisms and alliance networks, while others are expendable. If grief for one people is used to justify the subjugation of another, then grief has been weaponized. The demand free our hostages becomes a cover, for we remain answerable to no one. This is unacceptable. Accountability must be universal. If credible institutions say that crimes have been committed, leaders must face consequences, not because of political spite, but because the alternative is legal and moral nihilism. If the ICC has issued warrants, those warrants must be taken seriously. If UN panels and respected human rights organizations document patterns of conduct that risk constituting genocide or crimes against humanity, those findings must trigger international action. Investigations, sanctions, travel restrictions, asset freezes, and prosecutions where warranted. There can be no room for exceptionalism that shields allies from the law. And yet, and crucially, demands for accountability must be matched by immediate humanitarian justice. The urgent, practical step that should accompany every call for prosecution is the immediate and unconditional release of those detained for political reasons, the restoration of access to food, water, medical care, and the return of displaced populations to safety. A world that demands hostages back but allows mass detention, administrative imprisonment, or collective punishment to continue is not a moral world. It is a world of double standards. This is not about placing blame for grief. It is about the universal application of human rights and international law. It is about refusing to let state power become a free pass for atrocity. If we mean what we say, that no person should be held hostage, that children and civilians must never be used as bargaining chips, then that principle must cut both ways. Free the Israeli captives. Free the Palestinian detainees. Stop the siege and the starvation. Let law, not impunity, govern the response. To governments and international institutions, act with consistency. Press for prisoner exchanges and humanitarian pauses, yes, but also press for investigations and legal accountability where evidence demands it. To civil society and the public, demand the same standard for everyone. To media outlets, stop sanitizing language that masks asymmetries of power. To leaders who profit from one-sided narratives, remember that selective justice corrodes the moral basis of any claim to legitimacy. Freedom for hostages is urgent. So is freedom from occupation, arbitrary detention, starvation, and dispossession. Let our outrage be coherent. We should insist that all hostages be freed, and that all those responsible for crimes be held to account. Anything less is hypocrisy dressed as virtue.